Oh, hi everybody. How's it going? It's me, Kyle Mann, and this is my buddy, Ethan Nicole.
Hey, everybody. Hey, we got an awesome interview here today. Seamus, one of the crowd favorites of the Babylon Bee, Seamus Coughlin? Seamus Coughlin of FreedomToons.
And you didn't even get his name right. You got to pay better attention. Seamus is one of our favorite guests. Like Ethan said, he does FreedomToons, and it's fantastic. Seamus, he's a good friend of ours. And we had him on the weekly. We also did the interview sit-down show, and you can actually find a video where me and him talked about making animation as well. But we just went on, I can't remember what we talked about on this thing. We talked about all kinds of stuff. You guys remember anything we talked about?
I wasn't there for most of it.
Okay. It's Seamus, so it's always going to be fun. So this is a pretty casual one, right, Kyle?
Oh, yeah. We just kind of shot the breeze. We didn't have a lot of notes because Seamus is just one of those cats you can just sit down with and you just chew the fat.
That's right. Man, you sound so much like yourself today. Well, let's just welcome Seamus in, and if you haven't seen FreedomToons, go watch them. And if you haven't seen the other episodes with him on them, go watch those. Seamus, guy is a hoot, and he's a Catholic, and a very impassioned Catholic. So that's fun. Seamus Coughlin.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Babylon Bee interview show. Today we're sitting down with fan favorite Ethan Nicole to discuss with our other fan favorite, Seamus. I don't remember how to pronounce your last name.
Coughlin. We can't both be the favorite of the fans. So
I said
we're gonna have
other.
to sort this out. Like,
Deathmatch.
there's one favorite, like the favorite, and I don't know.
I mean, if we're looking at pure YouTube numbers on animation, I can't shake a stick at this guy.
then I'm the fan favorite. But also, if it is your fans, I would imagine your fans would be considering you the favorite because they're your fans. So
I've put a lot more time in with these people.
yeah.
Thank
And
you.
yet, I'm still their favorite.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, or at least their favorite. Yeah. I don't know.
I'm doing okay
Yeah, you're doing good.
with the Babylon Bee people. They seem to enjoy my presence.
You keep being on Tim Pool. How's that going?
That's been really good. Tim's super
Do they
cool.
like you?
Yeah, his audience seems to. Some of them call
His
me,
audience
like,
doesn't like you, but he likes you.
He likes me. His audience hates me.
Yeah.
They just constantly trash me. I think he brings me on as a lightning rod, so that no one will talk smack about him because I'm insufferable. I mostly just get called a theocrat in the comments section. No, in all reality, the audience feedback is usually really great, and it's awesome because I talk about Catholicism a lot. And there are some people who are very edgy. They're like, he's talking about his sky daddy or whatever. But for the most part, people really seem to enjoy it, including people who aren't religious. They just find the perspective refreshing.
Yeah.
How does the Sky Daddy comment affect your faith?
I really wrestle with it.
like
when
an
somebody leaves that
earthquake out of
comment, I'm like, wait a minute.
Daddies aren't in skies.
They're right. It doesn't make any sense.
Something you lie awake at night thinking about, for sure.
Exactly. Demolishes me. Owned with facts and logic. Yeah. But no, it's been great. And then I recently just did Matt Frad's show, Pints with Aquinas. He's pretty awesome. We went for 4 hours.
Wow.
So that was
You can't do that.
a great interview. I can. You guys might not be able to, but this is going to end up being 4 hours, and I'll do most of the talking.
I think our longest interview was probably a Kira Davis episode, probably a 2.5 hour.
Wow.
Hour deal.
I got to do one with Kira and Seamus, and we don't have to do anything.
We could just do a 5-hour interview.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's try it. So we're winging it today. We have no show notes.
We just
no
show notes,
We're
no
going to sit
topic.
down and have a conversation.
We just have that much confidence in Seamus, in our chemistry.
There is good chemistry.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't just show up cold. You guys have been hanging out for like a whole day.
Yeah.
We hung out
planning.
yesterday. Yeah.
So we did a little recording already, kind of a bonus video where we talk about just animation because he does FreedomToons. People don't know who this guy is.
Yeah. So
FreedomToons,
I am the creator of FreedomToons. I've been doing it for about 7 years now.
You're like,
Thank God
and
we've
that
had
you started when you were like 14.
Yeah, well, I was 19. I'm not that young, Ethan. But yeah, Ethan and I were hanging out most of yesterday. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. He insulted me most of the time, but I was like, you got to take your licks when you're new to the office.
It's true.
So that's how it be.
Yeah.
And then we hung out at his
you gotta
place.
break
And
it down.
We were actually watching our old work. Like I was showing
Yeah.
him my stuff from high school, and he was showing me his stuff from high school when we were very young. It was pretty cool.
Check out my cool drawings.
Stacks of
I was like, look at this.
flip books.
Yeah, look at this cartoon I made when I was 17 years old.
It's cool showing that work to somebody that understands what went into it. I think that's the thing.
Yeah, exactly. Because anyone else would watch that and be like,
This doesn't look like the TV.
This is garbage. But I saw it and I was like, I know why this is garbage. Like I know why. No, I'm kidding. But but seriously, like your flip books were awesome. The stuff you're doing in high school, I loved that. You were really ambitious with it. You would have multiple characters on the same page, which is really difficult when you're just doing like straight ahead flip book animation. Yeah. So it was really cool.
I was obsessed in like, and it was hard to find a good flip book that flipped nicely. And so when I got one, I would really be economical with it. And so I wouldn't just draw one kung fu fight on it. I'd fill the whole page with a crowd of people destroying each other.
So then would you just animate one person kung fu fighting at a time and then go through and add another person kung fu fighting all at once?
Yeah. No, one at a time.
Okay.
One fight at a time generally.
Okay. And then you put them all together. Yeah. It's pretty good stuff.
It's fun.
I drew some cool Stussy S's.
Oh, yeah.
On my Trapper Keeper.
Are you the guy who invented that?
Yeah.
Those are pretty cool.
Yeah, I came up with it.
I was reading an article about this and no one knows where that came from. It's just a strange folk thing.
And everybody thinks they
with all the angles?
Yes.
Yeah.
You do 3 lines.
3 lines. Mm-hmm. The 2 dashes.
Stussy didn't invent it?
No.
It was Bob Stussy.
Bob Stussy.
Yeah, of course. But no,
That's got to be a name, Stussy.
Stussy should be a name. I'm taking it for FreedomToons. You guys were here when I came up with the name Stussy. We're gonna put it in a cartoon. But yeah, no, it was cool to talk about the creative process yesterday and go over some of our stuff, and hopefully we can talk about some of that. And Kyle will just be left out, in the corner crying.
It's Stussy S's.
Yeah. We had to see the video. It was a cool video.
Yeah. So how are you guys doing? Life's good, treating you well.
This is going well. He's already asking us
how we're doing.
I'm interviewing you now. Flipping around. Look at me. I'm the captain. I'm glad you both got vaccinated so I could come out here because
thoroughly vaccinated.
I am afraid of the disease, but I'm also afraid of the vaccine. So I was like, everyone else I interact with has to get vaccinated, so I won't catch it, but I'm not getting vaccinated, Yeah. I force people. I'm very demanding, and I'm glad you guys took that up and got the needle in your arm. Yeah.
It's a weird thing. I'll have people that'll ask me, like, have you gotten the vaccine yet? Or when are you? They'll say, when are you?
I thought you did. That's why I came here.
Yeah. I just identified.
Okay. Perfect.
But they'll say, when are you getting it? And it's just like, it's so weird.
Just assuming,
Did you see that text from Tucker Carlson where somebody texted him and said, when are you getting the vaccine?
Yeah. Did the NSA show you that one?
Yeah. The NSA leaked it.
I did not see that Tucker Carlson text.
He texted back, basically, I will give you all the gory details of my love life if you wish also.
It's like such a weird invasion of a person's privacy, but it's socially acceptable. Let's just shame a person if they didn't get it.
Like people never really asked me about like the flu shot. Like once in a while, someone might be like, "Oh, I got my flu shot. Do you get them?" No,
yeah, it's more like,
it's
you
just
get
a casual.
No,
Okay,
yeah.
And it's a very strange thing now.
Now it's like if you don't get that shot, you're a conspiracy theorist who wants children to die.
Yeah,
right.
It's a weird thing.
Yeah.
I'm fine with public schools staying closed forever, though. That's one where I guess I'm not conservative. All these conservatives are like, open the schools. I'm like, don't do that, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, there is a weird like dissonance there where you go, the public schools are destroying our children's minds, and yet I need someone to babysit my children.
Because the right doesn't have any principles. It just opposes the left. And so the left-wingers are going, we need to keep these schools closed down, and right-wingers are like, no. Now, the one area where I understand where they're coming from is that these teachers are saying they want the schools to be shut down, even though there's basically no risk, but they still want to take the pay home. That is ridiculous and annoying. I'm with them on that. But I think public schools are just a problem in and of themselves. I think it's inherently bad for them to exist.
This is like the thing that becomes completely clear the moment that you start homeschooling is that public school is babysitting. Like they pad that day out
the
to
full
basically
8 hours
fit to
or
a
whatever.
work day. They waste so much time. That's so much your child's life just sitting there. They're getting picked on.
Which is so ridiculous. That's what's ridiculous about how they tried to move people to homeschool when the pandemic thing started. They were like, we're going to take the 8-hour day and just move it to home.
Yeah,
it's not how it works.
Like that works for everybody.
Yeah. Well, and also when people homeschool, they don't do it for 8 hours.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you're able to get through it much more quickly.
An hour or two.
It's a very small classroom size.
Yeah,
and also no one knows the child that you're teaching better than you do.
Right. Like on my you probably, I think you saw, you're at my house. My Alexa, my Fire Stick just starts playing family photos if it just sits there. I saw these photos pop up of my kid holding pumpkin spice items in the store. He'd been given an assignment to like find pumpkin spice items and show them to the camera as a part of a project for school. It's like, this is like the kind of like stupid thing that
is this Blue's Clues? Like,
and he's like 8 or something. Like,
I'm so glad
like
that
the
our
dumb
tax
projects
money
that they're given to like pad out the time.
Yeah, where does California rank in terms of education?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask in terms of pumpkin spice.
Well, in terms of
products.
of both. I mean, I assume there's a strong correlation between the two. Uneducated
sure.
people don't consume pumpkin spice products.
Yeah, we're pretty
That's
pretty
pretty
low. We're California public schools are pretty low.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Hey,
What
Google.
a surprise. Well, that's this weird thing.
Hey
where
Dan, Gould.
I think I don't think anyone on the planet believes that our public schools are good in the United States. The right and the left seem to agree on this, though they disagree over what the reason might be. The left claims it's because we've been slashing funding for education, which is factually completely incorrect.
Yeah.
Every year since the Federal Department of Education was founded, real spending has increased for public schools, and yet results have not. And so it clearly isn't the case that this is a matter of schools being underfunded. And what bothers me is that we give kids 12 years of a free education, which is to say a bloated and extremely expensive education at the taxpayer's expense. And they're not prepared for the workforce by the time they're done with that. And so people say, well, we need to give them free college. All right, well, if you couldn't prepare them for the workforce with the 12 years that we gave you to educate them, I don't know that giving you another 4 years with them is the best possible solution to that.
Yeah, and they do the same thing with preschool. They just try to do public
Yes.
preschool from 2 years old and up or whatever.
Which
And it's like-
is literally daycare.
yeah, it's just now you're just admitting it. It's just babysitting.
Yeah.
California's 38th, by the way.
38th? Oh, that's higher than I thought.
Yeah.
Good for you guys. for rising up.
We're killing it.
That is actually higher than I thought. Who's in last place?
Probably Alabama.
Probably Illinois.
I love you,
Alabama.
Alabama.
He just,
Yeah, just randomly smeared Alabama. Come on.
who's the worst? Now I really want to know.
Yeah.
I will let you know.
Do you think that there's a certain personality type that just really loves the idea of like school, like of just being in that like controlled environment everybody has to learn? I think even people like being in it, like they will go to college and then they never want to leave that environment. They even want work to be like that. Like,
And then those are the people who end up teaching.
yeah,
It's like weird.
they think that's how the world should be.
like
freaky. It scares me.
The weird kid you knew who liked school, that's who's going to teach your kids if you send them to public school. Are you sure you're okay with that?
And they're scared of real jobs.
Scared of real jobs.
I think that's what deep down the idea of going out and doing like a real job.
And like the educational system just sets you up to stay within the educational system for your entire life. And it's a weird fantasy. So Albert J. Nock writes about this. But basically, prior to the early 1900s, late 1800s, what an education meant was that by the time you were 16, you were fluent in Greek and Latin and understood all of the relevant mathematical theories of the day. And what happened was people decided that they wanted to universalize education, give everybody access, because of course at that time only the very wealthy and well-educated had access to education. And people assumed that that must mean that when people are very intelligent and well-educated, it's just because they were wealthy. And that was the reason only a small minority of people were getting an education. And there was some truth in that in terms of access. But once they tried to implement a national public education system, they realized very quickly most people are not capable of learning all of the things that were expected of an educated mind in the 1800s and prior. And so we've got this weird system that people seem to think was intentionally dumbed down as some kind of conspiracy to make people unthinking serfs. The reality is it's extraordinarily difficult to make a standardized educational curriculum for the entire population. And I think it's great, for example, that we have widespread literacy, that everyone is taught to read. But the problem is we no longer expect from the truly intellectually exceptional what was expected from any educated mind just 200 years ago. I mean, again, by the time you were 16, you were lettered in Greek and Latin. And then for your undergrad, you were going to become familiar with the entirety of the Western lexicon and read all of it in the original Greek and Latin. And now, by the time you get your undergrad, I mean, you're not even close to even being capable of attempting that.
People can't even spell or pronounce euro. They can say gyro.
Gyro, exactly.
Greek
And
sandwich.
that is my biggest problem.
Ridiculous.
That is the
number
most
one
serious
issue.
flaw with our educational system. But it's just really weird that we sort of we rewired the system. And I think it would have made sense to say, okay, clearly not everyone is capable of being educated at the same level. So let's make multiple different tracks for people based on their intellectual talent. And we sort of have that a little bit, but it's not particularized enough. Like you kind of have average, then you have gifted, and then you have slow. And on the it's a little more complicated than this. Yeah, and I was pointing this way when I said slow.
He's all gifted.
I'm physically slower.
Slow.
It's fine.
Yeah, but
I can deal with facts and logic.
But even so, it's just
You'll get that in a minute.
it's just very strange that the people we consider the cream of the crop in terms of their education are incapable of what was considered standard for an educated person in the past.
So we're getting dumber.
And that's one of the it's not just that like it's not as if we're getting dumber in terms of raw intellectual capacity, but in terms of the knowledge we're passing on, absolutely. And it's no wonder we also talk about intelligence in a very weird way. Classically, it was understood by the likes of Aristotle and Thomas Aquinas that intelligence is your ability to see the world for what it is and act in accordance with that. That's not how we discuss intelligence anymore. We mostly talk about G, or what IQ is measuring for, and there's something there that's a very valid metric. I can't remember everything that goes into it, but it's basically working memory, your intellectual processing power, ability to spot patterns, all really great predictors of economic success, all really great indicators of intelligence in terms of the ways that we define it. But there are some really high IQ people who don't see the world at all. I mean, they see themselves. They have a bunch of very strange theories about the way things should be. And so they try to fit the world into that box. And because they have a lot of raw brain power, they're really good at making things that are stupid sound smart.
And it's weird that you can be like 8 years old or like 78 years old and have the same high IQ level.
Yeah, that is also interesting because it norms for age and it corrects for age. But that's another thing. Our educational system doesn't really put the same emphasis on virtue, and that's a problem because that's really what intelligence is, your ability to see the world and interact with it as it exists. And what is virtue but behaving reasonably?
Intelligence. You can be a high IQ serial killer.
Yeah, or you can be a person with a high IQ who doesn't know the differences between boys and girls and writes your dissertation on how that difference doesn't actually exist fundamentally, and there are millions of different genders and just all sorts of other absurdities.
Yeah, there's something that changed there where we started to look at the world and say, what's wrong with the world instead of what's wrong with me?
Yeah,
how
exactly.
do I need to adjust?
Yeah, and I think a big part of that is the fact that really intelligent people are not given a classical education the way they would have been in the past. So the intellectual elites are creating their own narratives rather than falling into what was traditionally understood as the Western narrative or Western values, which is to say Catholic values. No offense, Calvinist boys over here. But
Yeah, it sounded like, C.S. Lewis's Men Without Chests, have you ever read Abolition of Man? It's similar to his argument, that it used to be in a classical education was your head and your heart, and how do you relate those things to each other so that you can relate to the world, the objective reality outside of yourself.
Yeah.
And if you see something wrong, with the way you're relating to the world, your first question is, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
How do I need to adjust, my attitude or my heart or my head to get
the waterfall
to relate to that?
analogy.
It was the waterfall thing about the objective beauty. Yeah.
yeah, well, and now it's you're not doing anything wrong, sweetheart. Let me tell you, it's the whole world that's a problem.
The world is the issue.
And we teach this to kids from a very early age. We were having a conversation about children's entertainment and how it shelters them from the realities it shouldn't shelter people from, and then it throws them into realities that we should not be exposing children to. So when it comes to abnormal, deviant sexual lifestyle choices, every child in the world has to know about all of that. That's progressive. We're educating them and making them more tolerant. But when it comes to wrestling with the fact that you are a flawed human being and you're not special just because you're you in the sense, and of course you are created in the image and likeness of God, but you're not just special in the sense that you can do no wrong and it's always the world's problem, which is a fundamentally immature attitude that most children have. Instead, they shelter them from that uncomfortable fact and tell them, just be yourself and it's all about you. I have a good friend. There's a family friend who's a priest named Father Tom. I'll give him a shout out. He's great. And one thing he used to say, and it just sounded so wonky to me when I was younger, and it's definitely not something that I would say because I'm not nearly as smart as he is, but that so much of what Disney puts out there in their films is all embodying the Nietzschean triumph of the will. These were his words. But I mean, it makes perfect sense. These films are always I want and then I get. And I don't think that's a healthy message for kids.
Right. Yeah, I was trying to think what was the message of Brave? It was like their whole reason for bravery was just basically like you are you and you be you. And I can't remember, but I remember watching
so
it and
brave.
thinking it was
it was really hopeless.
Yeah. Well, so a good friend of mine from Savannah is a former Disney animator. And I remember him explaining to me that he just can't even watch kids' films anymore. And the reason I'm mentioning that he's a Disney animator is because that might be like a weird thing for another grown-up to tell you in any other context. Like, I'm just done watching these Disney films. They don't speak to me, these kids' cartoons. But honestly, in this culture, actually, that might not be that strange a thing to hear because we extend childhood forever. But he was basically saying that as someone who's an animator who likes to keep up with the industry, he can't watch this stuff anymore because it's literally all the same story every time. And so I was like, believe in yourself, and deep down you have the power to do whatever you want. And it's just so banal. But I guess it sells. I mean, it embodies our culture's values really well. You can give them that. And it's a chicken or egg style thing where you're not sure if the media is just embodying what our values have become as a culture because we've degraded so much, or if it has been a concerted effort from the media to propagandize people. And by that, I don't mean people, sitting in a cigar room saying, how do we change the public's minds on this? But just people in media having bad values and then those values coming out through their work. And I'm not really sure what causes and what's the effect.
Yeah, I've talked about this before, but I used to be worried about showing my kids things that had violence or, like I don't know if they're ready for that yet. Now it's like, it's way worse to me to show them like Frozen 2.
Yeah.
When it's like this whole message of you can go out and find this existential reality for yourself and it's you are your own savior. I'm like, that is way worse than just showing them like a Breaking Bad or something. Not that I've shown them Breaking Bad.
No, well, but maybe you should, of course.
At some point.
It's a much better moral lesson.
If you want to
You show them Axe Cop.
exactly, show them Axe Cop. No, I hear you on that. There's so much children's entertainment that's really horrifically insidious. I can't, and part of what I would love to do as I continue to grow and expand is start to create children's content that isn't insidious. And it's not about going in there and saying, how am I going to infect their young childish minds with my right-wing perspectives? It's just making films that have decent morals for kids that don't tell them that they're the center of the universe.
Yeah.
Yeah, or maybe even showing kids both sides of an issue and teaching them how to think rather than like, this is what to think exactly.
Yeah, we'll do that some with our kids. Like if we do watch a Disney movie, like, hey, what was that movie trying to tell you?
Yeah, you show them both sides, and you're like, all right, now what did the stupid liberal say?
Exactly.
And what did the thing the smart conservative say make more sense?
Yeah.
Both sides.
And then we have a bonfire and we burn the Frozen 2 Blu-ray together. Oh, New Mexico's the lowest ranked state, by the way.
Oh, speaking of Breaking Bad.
Where's Illinois on that list?
And then Alabama's 44th. So I wasn't too far off. Sorry, Alabama.
Who's top?
Heights. Where's Illinois? It says Illinois is 13th.
I refuse to believe that.
Really?
Yeah. Well, that probably includes all of Illinois, not just...
not
Illinois
Chicago.
divided.
No, to be fair, the public school I went to was very good for a public school. I won't rag on it, but Illinois, it's
I
a
actually lucked
mismanaged
out and
state,
had really good
let's say.
public school education. So
Yeah, no, I hear you, honestly. You probably
What's number
should,
one?
yeah.
Do we know?
Massachusetts.
Okay.
I don't even know what this is ranking, though. This just says these
Yeah,
are the
also,
ratings.
how do
I mean,
you
like they
rank
have
that?
the highest
That's test
standardized testing
scores,
scores.
probably.
The kids are the most socially well adjusted.
Probably. But you always look at what they spend on education too, and it's like it goes up and up and up every year. Especially just for inflation, it still goes up. And
Yeah,
up.
even adjusted for inflation, we spend more on it every single year.
But then there's a
and
weird
they go,
narrative.
We're cutting
that-
education.
Yeah, there's a weird narrative
but it's
about
literally not even true at all. I don't know what numbers they're looking at. I think they're just saying it. I'm not sure if they're looking
weird
at
narrative. I don't know.
Maybe they're looking at like state level funding in certain areas. I really don't know.
It says we spend over $12,000 a student in California. But you think about like if they just handed you $12,000, do whatever you want with your
In a
kids'
year.
education.
$1,000 to educate your kids.
Yeah.
Just buy a new car.
how
Put a
much did
solid
you say?
down payment on.
$12,000
Per year?
per student per year. Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite a lot of money.
That is
and then,
about, like, that's
but
what-
hold on, instructing them on picking out pumpkin spice from the grocery store and taking
exactly.
pictures with it is an expensive endeavor.
You can't really put a price tag
Yeah,
on it.
exactly.
Right. And you got to feed them the lunch, school lunch.
Well, this is another prime example of why Christians are way better at doing everything that socialists claim that they want done. They talk about free education. My father went to a Catholic school as a kid in the 50s and 60s, and the tuition was $2 a month per kid.
Wow.
I mean, nothing. And he probably got the best education of any generation in this country with respect to mass education. I know I was ragging on mass education, but as far as mass
Mass
education,
education?
like Catholic mass, no, in terms of widespread education.
Welcome to mass education.
Yeah, but it's also sad how horribly that system broke down including and maybe even especially the Catholic school system. My father is 10 years older than his youngest brother, and he was well educated in the tenets of the faith. By the time his youngest brother graduated, his youngest brother didn't even learn how to pray a rosary the entire time he was at Catholic school. So the whole system just degraded throughout the 60s. Wow. Which is why I also tell people, and I say this to Catholic parents, don't send your kid to Catholic school. Don't send them to public school. But unless you do your research and you determine that this is a very good Orthodox Catholic school and they're really going to be teaching them the tenets of the faith instead of just whatever they would learn in a public school with the added scandal of being led to believe this is compatible with Catholic thought, you just have to homeschool, frankly.
Most Catholic schools, and most people I knew that went to Catholic schools weren't even Catholic. Like they just... The parents learned that they were good schools and
exactly.
Heard they were good schools.
The Catholic schools, well, because Catholic schools are the most affordable private schools. And people they don't want their kid going to public school, and who can blame them?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a good way to convert the youth.
Yeah, well, no, unfortunately not Catholic schools. If it's a really good Catholic school, but most of the kids I knew who went to Catholic school,
right? That's what
Catholic.
That was my experience.
Well, and I know that a lot of it is just the scandal that's given to them by their teachers, because a lot of them will give like but even the religion teachers will give them a very modernist take that casts a lot of doubt on the faith and what Scripture teaches, and it's very sad. I've had, and this is completely out of line with what the Catholic Church teaches. This is not something the Church says Catholics are able to believe, but I've had
Pope
friends.
Francis, if you're watching.
No, stop it. But I've had friends tell me that they heard like homilies from priests saying, well, the miracle of multiplication was actually the miracle of sharing. And Jesus just told the people to share the little bits of food that they had with them, and he didn't actually multiply it. It's like, that is not what we believe. Why would you document that as a miracle also?
Yeah.
That seems like such an uncritical thing to believe. They'll just do anything they can to deny any supernatural element within Scripture, a lot of these modernists and non-Christians as well. And they're willing to believe things that make zero sense, because there would be no point of documenting this stuff if it was just... And if you want to make the argument, and I don't think it's plausible when you look at all the facts, but if you want to make the argument that these were just stories that evolved into legends later, I think that's wrong. But I can understand that. However, to say, well, this was really documented because they were trying to talk about the miracle of sharing, it's like, that's completely incoherent. Why? Paper was expensive back then, man. Very few people were literate. Why would you waste your time documenting the miracle? Like, people shared before that. It's like, that's not a miracle. That's not what miracle means.
It's the miracle of friendship.
Yeah, it's just, there's a horrible catechetical crisis in the church. And I'm sure it's probably also the case with a lot of Protestant denominations too. Problems in the Protestant church? Wow.
The Protestant church is doing very well right now,
I don't know about that, buddy. First of all, I've seen your movies, all right? I saw God's Not Dead too. If you call that doing well.
Well, as long as we disown all the heretics, we're fine. Joel Osteen.
Then there'd be none of you left.
No, it's true.
But no, it's very sad. I'm curious about this. In Protestantism, is there a kind of catechetical crisis you found where there's just many liberal leading Protestants who... Like kids aren't being taught the catechism properly. I guess it's difficult because in the Catholic faith there is an ordinary magisterium that's been propagated with set tenets, and I know that there are so many different Protestant sects, and many of them don't even have that standardized set of values, so maybe it's harder to pinpoint. But I'm curious if you notice,
it's entirely dependent on the denomination.
Yeah,
you have some denominations that are doing very well, and they're very they do catechize the kids. Mm-hmm. You have some that don't. So the mainline ones have all gone off the deep end. Mm-hmm. Any mainline Baptists, mainline Presbys, they're all gone.
So I'm curious, what do you think is going to happen with the Calvinist community over the next 20 or 30 years?
I don't know. Whatever God wills.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, I think we already saw that you had the young, restless, and reformed movement that came up. All these pipe smoking Calvinists with beards and the flannel, and a lot of them already have kind of gone off.
We've got that too.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, most young Catholics are extremely traditional. And it's become a meme that young priests are always extremely orthodox priests who mostly just want to say the Latin Mass and don't do anything to spread heresy or seem as if they're attempting to spread heresy. So that's encouraging. And I think a big part of that is as the world becomes less and less Christian, and the people who are most interested in conforming leave the church, the people who are left are going to be the really solid believers. And the people who enter the church are really going to be countercultural.
Yeah, I saw exactly the same thing, that like my parents' generation, you had a lot of people that were kind of doing this wishy-washy main line, getting away from the doctrine. It was more about the feeling. That's what you saw in our songs, what you saw in our sermons.
Yep.
And then our generation was like, you know what? We kind of like the really old hymns. We kind of want to go back to teaching doctrine. We don't really care about the pastor showing Braveheart clips every Sunday. That's not going to draw us in.
That was happening? My goodness.
Yeah. You guys didn't do the Braveheart clip?
No, we did not do the Braveheart
They watched
thing.
Daredevil.
Yeah, exactly, because he's Catholic, of course.
Yeah.
No, but a similar thing, so it leads me to wonder if this is just something that occurred across all, if this is just something that happened with Christianity broadly speaking. But I know that in the Catholic Church, you had a crisis where there are many priests and members of the church trying to insinuate that Vatican II said things it didn't really say, or that the new rubric said things they didn't say. So, for example, the documents of Vatican II say that all things being equal, Gregorian chant must be given pride of place in Catholic churches. But how many Catholic churches have you been in over the past 50, 60 years where Gregorian chant was given pride of place? A lot of these things were just ignored, and it's because the laity were not well educated on what the faith taught. And so more corrupt elements within the hierarchy.
I have been to the Catholic Church twice. Wait, three times in a decade. And no Gregorian chants.
Yeah, it's
so
rare.
I'm all for 3.
And it's granted, like language that says like all things being equal, that can be tricky to nail down. But ultimately, I think what happened was they got rid of kneelers and altar rails. There's a beautiful church in my neighborhood that it was just gorgeous before the 60s and 70s and the reforms. And they literally, what they did is they like literally took statues out of the church and were just like throwing them in the dump. Because somebody there convinced them, well, it's like in the spirit of Vatican II to get rid of our traditions, which is not true. None of that was called for. And so it seems to coincide, maybe it's even correlative, or I'm sorry, maybe it's even in causal in some respect with the general watering down of Christianity in America.
Yeah, I definitely see something like that. And then you were saying about how you think it's just going to be the hardcore people who are even going to church anyway. And we saw that especially through the pandemic.
Yes.
The people that are going to church are the people that really believe it anyway.
And the priests who were saying Mass are the ones that those people knew they could turn to be fed.
Yeah.
And so I think fewer of them are going to return to the lukewarm parishes that they came from. I think that one of the positive long-term effects of this lockdown could be that the more lukewarm modernist parishes collapse or become impoverished, see fewer numbers, because a lot of the churches I know of that were struggling before the pandemic, the really Orthodox ones, are doing really well.
Yeah, I saw the same thing.
Yeah. And so, thank goodness, really.
Yeah.
It's incredible. So, yeah, God draws straight with crooked lines, as they say.
Well,
so when you go to Tim Pool's house, is there like half pipes and
Yes.
like, it smells
Yes, there actually is.
smells like incense and bongs? And like,
No, not the second part, but there are half
Breaking
pipes.
Benjamin's playing and
There are lots of half pipes. He's got an awesome place. I can't tell you guys too much about it. You're not allowed. He made me specifically promise not to tell
everyone's
you guys
got like a
anything.
little armband.
Yeah. But he's a cool guy. We met, we first started speaking because I was doing a video making fun of his encounter with Jack Dorsey and his lawyer on Joe Rogan. And I realized I couldn't do a Tim Pool impression. So I just messaged Tim Pool on Twitter. I was like, I wrote some lines making fun of you. Could you do your own voice, please? And he was like, all right. And then he did. And it was really funny. I thought he did a great job. And so we started talking a little bit after that. And then about a year ago, he has to collaborate on some projects. And so we have been, and I've been going back and forth between his place and doing the show while I'm out there. So it's a lot of fun. His people are super cool too. He's got a great team.
Yeah, he's got a bunch of homies.
Yeah.
Podcaster homies.
Lydia and Ian are there a lot of time. And then the people who are off camera too, like Dane and Tiffany and a lot of the people who work there are awesome.
The guy just like reads news all day.
Yes, he does. He reads a lot of news.
Yeah. I guess that's his job. But
Yeah, it's like a big part of what he has to do.
it's not a fun part of any job.
No. Reading? Gross.
Yeah. Well, especially the news. It's depressing.
The news is, and this is what I tell people, with what I have to do for a living and with what you guys have to do for a living, and listen to me, what we have to do, like we're paid to make jokes, and look what we have to do for a living. Yeah. But with what we do for a living, there is a requirement to stay caught up on these issues. But for the average person, it's probably better for you to not be consuming this stuff 24/7.
Yes, 100%.
totally.
I would not read the news if I didn't have to.
Yeah. Well, and even going back to what we were saying about the church, I try to impart this to other Catholics. Like, it's the most important part about your faith is your relationship with God and growing spiritually. And there are a lot of controversies in the church, but you really shouldn't dedicate a lot of your time to fixating on those.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's problems with the church, it's because you're not holy enough, is the short answer. And so get holier, and then there will be fewer problems. But people become obsessed with controversy, and I get it. I'm very interested in politics myself. And part of the way I am able to survive doing this without losing my mind is because I'm making fun of everything, as you guys are.
Exactly. That's the only thing. And to know that our viewers, when they, or our readers on the BabylonB.com, when they see something and it's like, oh, yes, we are playing on this controversy, but we're also mocking it so that you don't care about it so much.
Exactly.
You don't see how,
Exactly. As soon as it's in their face, they're laughing about it. And when I first started doing this, I'm curious what your process or evolution was, but when I first started doing this, I almost saw it as trying to translate my rage into someone else's laughter. But then that sort of became unhealthy.
Yeah.
And I realized I needed to moderate maybe my own emotions a bit better there. And now it's gotten to the point where I see these things, and the best strategy is to catch it before it becomes anger and look at it in the funniest possible way right off the bat, and then try to make other people laugh with that. I'm curious with you guys, did you ever find yourself reading these stories and then you're mad and you want to do something about it, or you read it and you just kind of laugh and go, this is ridiculous, and I can make it even funnier?
I rarely get mad. I rarely get enraged about something I see in the
I'm
news.
way too Gen X.
You
he's
guys
Gen
are both
X.
pretty like phlegmatic.
Sure.
You still know so many big words for such a young child. A young man.
Phlegmatic. Well, no, sorry. Are you familiar with the temperaments? Flag magnet? No, phlegmatic. Are you guys familiar with the temperaments?
Sure.
The temperament.
The temperaments.
Hey, Google.
Is what is
this a Catholic thing?
It is. Well, so it's a Greek thing that Catholics have adopted, and it's basically, it's not like part of the faith in a canonical sense, but it's just something a lot of Catholics tend to be interested in because it's part of classical philosophy. And
Catholics are smart.
yeah, geniuses. But the idea is that there are 4 basic personality types, and everyone like usually has a dominant and then a secondary. And so I'm usually not into personality stuff. Like Myers-Briggs was interesting to me, and it is kind of based on the temperaments, but the score changes a lot. And then there's like the big 5, which they all tell you something. But the reason I like the temperaments is because they're really simple, and you actually find they map onto other people really well. You don't have to sit down and take a test to know what someone is. So there's sanguine, and sanguine people are usually just like more fun-loving, upbeat, like to laugh, and also tend to have like a little more difficulty with self-control. And then there's choleric people, who are the people who are like usually more intellectual, but just generally like to argue, get angrier more easily, fast-moving. And then there's melancholic people, who are usually more introspective and more prone towards sadness and being gloomy. And then there's phlegmatic people, who are just not super energetic. They're more likely to let things roll off of them. And
yes, I am phlegmatic.
Yeah, you guys seem pretty phlegmatic. You're both very laid back.
Yeah.
I mean, I do get upset about some issues, but you also, I mean, I don't know, the way that we consume news, like just when I see a news headline, I'm immediately deconstructing it, being cynical about it, and going, this isn't what it says on the face of it. You read a Daily Wire headline that's like, I can't believe this. And I'm just
That is weird. The way you read the news is as if you're in a pitching room and someone's like pitching things at you to make a joke about. Like, here's one, make a joke about this. Like, you don't even think. You don't even think, you might even forget that, like, oh, people died or something happened.
Yeah.
Because this becomes your world of like, how does this turn into a joke to laugh at?
Yeah, it's just, I read a news headline, I don't even believe it anymore. Maybe that's a problem. I don't know.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, in the past, it really seemed to me as if what the media had done was they took a story. With every story I saw, it felt as if what they'd done is they took something, there was some kernel of truth in their heresy. They twisted a few facts and tried to construct a narrative that doesn't quite map onto the situation, but could be believed if you had half the information. And now it just feels like they're making stuff up. And I was just like, it feels like you literally just made this up. Like it's
even like the way that they're written to provoke, and to the internet clickbaity way that headlines have become. So it's almost like then you're trying to reverse engineer, like, what is the motive behind this headline?
Yes.
And that becomes the joke.
Yeah, that's all right. That's interesting. So now I know your
motivation?
comedy strategy for writing these headlines, and I'm going to steal it. So
Part of them.
all the audience can. You're going to have 1 million competitors tomorrow.
It's true.
I released the secret formula.
Yeah. No, but I guess I am curious about your process. So you do the headlines and then you write the articles. And usually I know that with satire websites, the big part is the headline and the image getting shared, and not as many people read through the article, but it's still a victory to have it shared around. What is that like? I mean, when you're writing the article, how much emphasis is put into the actual body of text, and how much is just put into needing to have this really snappy title?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the headline is, the pitch and the what someone's going to get sold on, So that's where most of the effort goes. Most of the creative effort is just generating that. But we do try to make the copy funny enough to where if someone clicks,
no, it is. I've read through.
You want it to be this like psychological, like, oh, that's an interesting concept. Last time I clicked on a B article, there were some pretty funny parts in there, and we try to hide the little jokes. And it's a very dry, we want to very dryly report the news and then kind of twist with the jokes in the copy.
And there are some really good headlines that you guys have had that have been conducive to getting people to click as well. So the one was like groups that Jesus didn't specifically instruct us to love.
Right.
That was a great joke. That's a great bit. And then also you're kind of curious to see who you're trashing in the article.
And we've been doing more of those like clickbaity ones recently because Facebook crushes us so hard on the viral stuff. We can't get links to go viral anymore. So now if we can get it to go do okay and you get a much higher percentage of people clicking on it, then we'll do a lot more of those like lists. And yeah, you're right. If it's something that a good listicle headline is something that immediately somebody comes up with 2 or 3 punchlines in their own head of what it might be. We have one that's like signs your baby might be a racist,
and they want to see if their joke is in there.
Yeah, and they immediately go, there's just a really strong premise where they go, signs your baby might be a racist, and they immediately start thinking of things their baby does and say, oh. And they click, and they might get 2 or 3 of them, But then we have twists and different punchlines that they didn't expect, and so that's a really good formula for getting those.
Yeah, for sure. No, and it's interesting too because obviously on my end, it's almost the opposite where the title and thumbnail come last, but at the same time, title and thumbnail can make or break your video's performance. So I think that's probably a big part of your success with the articles is you put a lot of intentional effort into that title and thumbnail. And sometimes for me, it's like, I have to upload this video in an hour and I just really need to think of a strong title right now.
Yeah, and we're trying to correct the video thing too, and that's what we're working on. It's a different way of thinking about it. But sometimes, we do take a B headline and we just put it into a video. And
Well,
if we have a strong thumbnail, it works great.
Well, that's good because you already have some mileage out of that headline. You know which ones
are doing
going to
well,
get the most clicks.
Right.
Have you found there's a difference between YouTube and Facebook in terms of what headlines get clicks? Like, will one headline do better on a specific platform?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know what the breakdown is, but it's bizarre. How one of our most viral videos ever on YouTube. Now Facebook, not as many shares. It's just a weird thing. And I don't know if that's Facebook algorithm or I don't know if it's just some things are more intentional for YouTube the way that we do them. They're like we know this is going to do well on YouTube. It's just a different audience.
Yeah.
It's not something that someone would want to share on their Facebook page for their grandma to see, but it's something they'll watch on YouTube.
Do you guys ever have a really funny idea for a tweet and you're like, no, I need to save this? Do you ever wrestle with that? Because that's a thing for me. I'll have a funny idea for like a tweet or a social media post. I'm like, oh, I should probably put that in a video to make the video funnier. And if people read the tweet here, it won't be as funny when they see it in the video. Is that a thing, or am I just a neurotic human being?
I just started tweeting them out, and then if they do well, then I just put them into an article.
It's a good test. Yeah.
Test it out. Yeah.
Well, part of the problem is people will steal your joke once they see it as a tweet. So I had this happen. I wrote a joke that TPUSA just like copied and put on a meme without giving me any credit for.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, TP, they're an interesting organization. Yeah. I've had other run-ins with them.
Which he will detail in the subscriber portion.
Oh, that's right. Are we going to do that? Are we going to do that?
Yeah, we got to get over there.
But it's this anxiety. If I tweet this out, is someone going to steal this joke? And then are people going to think that I stole it when they watch my video that has the joke in it? Because that's like the worst.
I've had ones that I've tweeted and then I've tweeted the joke out. It's gotten a few thousand retweets on my account. And I'm like, this has to be a B article. So I turn it into a B article. The B article does even better. And nobody ever mentions the tweet that.
Okay, good.
I do love the people that tell you you're picking
They're like, hey, Babylon Bee stole your joke.
Yeah.
Or the other way around.
That's hilarious.
They don't know who you are. Yeah.
Doesn't your bio say that you work for the Babylon Bee, or does it just have your pronouns in it?
But that too. Yeah. But the problem, public schools, people can't, because of public schools, people can't read. So
then what are they doing on Twitter?
Yeah, well, that's a good point.
How to tell you your
pictures,
jokes?
GIFs, they only communicate with GIFs now. That's.
By the way, what is this? Does this mug have something heretical on it that I'm drinking? Okay, no. Good. I was like, is this some kind of Calvinist
Did you give
mug
him the
as I'm
Luther mug?
drinking? Yeah,
you didn't give him the Luther mug.
Oh my goodness.
We do have a Calvin mug.
Yeah, we do.
Don't want either. Don't want either.
Well, let's get to the subscriber portion,
do it.
and we're going to ask him the second 10 questions. I
Oh,
think.
you didn't do that.
Oh, the second 10 question. There's even more.
Yeah.
Of those amazing questions.
Did you prepare new ones for me this
We have
time?
new questions. We had to
questions.
find them because Patrick usually gets them and he's not here right now. Unless he is here. I mean, he's back.
We have food.
We have food to eat.
We're going to go eat and have a subscriber portion.
All right, let's
You-
do it.
Oh, we're done? This is it?
Well, we're going to go to the
we're gonna
subscriber
go-
portion. We'll stop,
Okay,
take
cool.
a break.
Take a quick break. Well,
some lunch.
I love you all watching this. I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Check out youtube.com/FreedomToons. Patreon.com/FreedomToons also if you want to help us make more. FreedomToons.com. It's a third option. OONS.
Do we have a fourth option?
You could also go to twitter.com/@Seamus_Coughlin. There's so many options.
So many
There's so
choices.
many things you can do for me. Please, just at least one of them. Thank you, audience. I love you.
In this day and age, the word podcast can mean a lot of things. But on our farm, it simply means the best subscriber exclusive experience that money can buy. No hormones or insecticides, just simple, fresh, cage-free, and never frozen podcasts that go from our farm and into your ears like warm mashed potatoes dripping from a wooden spoon right down your ear canal. Delicious. That's not just flavor. That's the Babylon Bee subscriber exclusive podcast experience. Dig in. You earned it.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Babylon Bee.
I want to go home. I'm done. I'm tired. I wanted food and you guys wouldn't let me have any. I'm hungry. I asked for a hamburger and they didn't even put barbecue sauce on it.
Really? asked for
No,
barbecue sauce on it?
to be honest, I didn't look.
Okay.
Because my stomach felt a little full. But like my stomach feels full, but I'm still hungry, you know? Like seeing you guys eat made me hungry. And so I'm like in between. I don't really know what I'd be wanting, what I want.
Well, me and Ethan are in a much better mood because
Yeah.
we ate.
I had a breakfast burrito. You said you've never had a
I've
breakfast
never
burrito.
had a breakfast burrito. And Ethan described it as it's like holding a baby.
No, it's like an entire breakfast that you
And
then
he
swaddled
said it,
up
and
like
I
a
was
newborn.
That's a weird, yeah. It's like eating your
That
child.
you can, and
then we got
cradle
one,
it,
and then
and
he
you can, but you
cradled-
can eat it.
And we went to
All the benefits of holding a baby, but you can
You can eat it.
But sometimes you kind of want to bite a baby. I don't know.
That
You
is,
want to like nibble on the cheeks or like.
Yeah, they're like so cute and tender looking. You just want to.
Well, Ethan's never holding my baby.
yeah, exactly. That's true.
Your
Well, no,
baby, they're like 12,
Bishop
man.
Fulton Sheen actually writes about that.
Who,
There's
what?
a wholeness in that, like with the Eucharist, like literally consuming Christ is like when you love
See,
something,
you eat
you wanna
Jesus.
consume it. Yeah.
Take
This is already way better than the whole free
Yeah, it's
version.
already.
I know we're just cracking jokes over here. I'm sorry, I was so tired on the free version.
Yeah.
And then we got talking about stuff, and there weren't really show notes, so I wasn't sure
Yeah.
what to riff off of. So I was just saying stuff, trying to make opinions come across clearly. But I feel like we weren't joking. I hope the audience is gonna be disappointed. I hope they're not gonna be like,
It's free.
You know,
but everyone's gonna see it and they're gonna judge us, bro. They're gonna be like, I'm not.
We'll make
watching
Dan
Freedom
edit it
Tunes-
down
Not
to
watching
all the best
Freedom Tunes
parts.
ever again.
I know we have different views on the Eucharistic communion and stuff, and you know, I still think that I will agree. It's very goofy when Protestants do the little. Have you seen the little prepackaged?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Communion. It just at that point, I'm like, okay, you have gone too far.
So do you guys? I've had talked to different Calvinists about this and heard different things. What is your belief about the real presence?
that it doesn't exist.
Okay, so you don't believe in transubstantiation, consubstantiation, then, or okay, none
And
of it.
like
Okay, the Lutherans
millions of
are
people murder each other over this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like what's about to happen right
Interesting.
now.
Yeah, we're just gonna kill each other.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
if
but it depends on the Protestant denomination. Like Lutherans are more.
Yeah.
So are there Protestants that believe in it? Well, I guess you can find everybody doing it.
Yeah.
yeah.
Closer to
Well,
it.
Anglicans, I suppose. Anglicans sort of do.
You don't
It's
really believe in
complicated.
it not the same way, though, right?
No, I'm not sure.
So Dan believes in it?
Calvinists, Presbyterians, it's true presence, but spiritual.
True presence, but spiritual.
Christ's physical bodies.
So which is consubstantiation then, right?
I don't
is that the
think so.
proper theological term, or is this something
I
else?
think Luther and Calvin are pretty close.
It's similar.
Okay, interesting.
He thinks Luther and Calvin are pretty close.
The spiritual, it's like the spiritual presence is on, around, and under it or something.
Physically, spiritual.
But still, we can all unite against the prepackaged.
The little wafer in the shot.
Yeah, it's so. It is.
It's convenient.
But so I'm curious, why does someone who doesn't believe in the real presence, does that bother you just on a spiritual level then? Like this, I mean, it would bother me on a spiritual level too, but you don't believe it's his literal flesh and blood appearing under the properties of bread and wine. But so Protestants believe it's just his spirit connected to it then?
It depends on who you ask. I think most people in my theological tradition, which is kind of Baptist-y Calvinist, would say it's completely a memorial. It's just a remembrance.
So the spirit isn't even there?
The spirit, well, not in any different sense than the spirit is already there, right? I think I'd actually lean a little more, kind of what Dan was talking about. Like I'm starting to lean that way, where there is something mystical and special that is happening there. And maybe that's just the true Catholic faith calling to me. I don't know.
It could be. Well, I'm curious how do you read John 6? Because this is not me trying to be uncharitable to Protestants, but like every time I read that, it's hard for me to come away with anything but a really literal interpretation of eat my flesh and drink my blood. Because when they murmur, like, how can he give us his flesh and blood to eat? He goes like, no, truly I say to you, my flesh is true food, my blood is true drink. I'm just curious how you...
I mean, he also says he's a door, and he's not made of wood.
For sure, but when he says he's a door, the people don't go, how can a man be a door? And he doesn't go, I am truly a door.
Well, it's the same thing when he says you must be born again, but he's not actually talking about being born again.
But I think people don't...
But they had the same objection, right?
You're like Drax or what?
Well, I know that with other metaphors...
Catholics read it like Drax the Destroyer.
Well, no, but because the second time he brings it up, he goes, my flesh is food, my blood is drink, and then they go, how can he give us his blood, his flesh to eat? And the Greek word he responds with emphasizes like gnawing or chewing in the text. No, unless you truly gnaw at or eat my flesh, which to me, I don't understand how you could read that as anything other than literally eat.
So wait, I never thought about this. So like at the Last Supper, when Jesus is serving the blood and not the blood, the wine and the bread to all these guys.
Well, yes, the blood.
Yeah.
So that in your idea, like what you guys think is that like the bread turned into like Jesus meat, like there.
And this is interesting because at the Mass, a priest acts in persona Christi. So, which is to say Christ is there in another sense. The person is acting in the stead of Christ. At the Last Supper, what happened was we believe that's the first Mass. And so what happened there is what happens at every other Mass, where the properties of bread and wine are retained, but it is his body, blood, soul, and divinity. So it's his literal flesh and blood, but it appears under the properties of bread and wine. So we don't believe like it doesn't taste like flesh or blood, but we believe that it is because of what he said in Scripture and because.
But is there like a finite amount of physical Christ body?
No.
So he has infinite.
He's
physical
He's
matter.
God, right? He can do whatever he wants. Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah. But his physical body wasn't infinite.
But he could.
But anyway.
Yeah, you guys continue. I'm sorry.
I have come to recognize that there is something more special and mystical occurring in communion that is not. It's not something you can take online like they were doing.
Yeah. What? That was a thing?
Yeah, Zoom. Like just get some grape juice and crackers and do it. And that has made me question the 100% memorialist view, where it's just because it's not the same.
That is interesting.
There's a gathering and something that is happening. I don't know what it is. But.
Yeah, well, so what was the response in most of the Calvinist community to that? Like,
I think most Calvinists were against that.
That's interesting.
Because like Dan said, some of them lean more towards the real presence or the true presence, or whatever he was talking about. Whatever Dan was saying.
Interesting. Yeah, I know that. It's sad because a lot of the bishops said that you didn't have an obligation to go to Mass because there was this pandemic.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
And I thought it was bizarre too. Excuse me. And
especially with the Catholic view.
No, exactly. It is literally his body, blood, soul, divinity. He's there.
How does a Catholic arrive there?
Yeah. And so what they were saying is you're absolved from the necessity to come to Mass because of this pandemic, because there's a grave circumstance.
Okay.
And then they reinstated the obligation, but people were watching on TV. And I can understand saying, well, if I can't be there, then this is the next best thing in some sense. Right. But no, it's not. It is not the same as attending a Mass. I mean, it's just different because you're not there with Him. You're not there with Christ. And you're not receiving the Eucharist. So it's totally different. It's not something you can just sit and watch and have the same experience with.
Yeah. Agreed. I think.
It's
Catholic, Patrick, do you agree? All right, thumbs up.
And isn't it sad too how many Christians just kind of rolled over and allowed their churches to be shut down?
It was bizarre to me.
Yeah.
It was bizarre.
After the first few weeks. Like, I get the first couple weeks, everyone's worried, everyone's scared, and it's like, okay, this isn't that bad.
It's like, you guys just really didn't want to go to church, and now this is an excuse. You're like, I don't like going every Sunday. And I think For some people, probably were really scared. So you look at the elderly.
Yeah,
to me, it would make sense, especially when we didn't know what this was, and maybe even after, once we had better data, if it was a significant enough risk to the elderly in the mind of the church to say, well, if you're above a certain age, we'll absolve you, because this happens in other areas. So with fasting, if you're ill or you're above a certain age, the church doesn't make you fast because that becomes a detriment to your physical health. And so in a similar way, they could say, well, you're at risk for the disease, so your obligation is dispensed. But to expense the obligation for everyone, including people who were certainly not going to get sick, or if they did get sick, had an extremely low likelihood of death, is really strange to me, especially because, I mean, Christ is with lepers in Scripture, and so are the apostles frequently. I mean, it is very clear based on what we read in Scripture that we are called to take upon such risks in order to do the will of God. And it doesn't mean that everyone should just go be irresponsible with respect to disease prevention at all times, but if doing God's will means you have to put yourself in harm's way, I think COVID is significantly less dangerous than leprosy, but I also am not a medical expert, so I'll couch that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe COVID is worth it. And I don't want to make light of COVID because I have a friend whose dad died recently of COVID-19. It's horrible. It is horrible. But at the same time, I don't know that telling. But he was also older, and so the idea that younger people shouldn't be going to church during this, to me was so strange. It was so strange.
Yeah.
The church declaring itself non-essential.
Yeah, weird. That was the thing. I felt like culture just kind of was ready to say, like, we all know you guys just go because it makes you feel good, but you don't really need to go. And the church is like, yeah,
exactly.
It's true. We could just listen to sermons.
And I saw so many just typically theologically illiterate takes from atheists trying to own Christians through all of this. So they were saying things like, you think God's everywhere, but you have to go to church, even though there's a disease that might spread. It's like, well, all right.
Give the little smarmy look. Can you give us an atheist? Perfect.
And now, granted, not all of them, but the ones acting in bad faith. I mean, some are genuinely trying to seek the truth, but then when you get like owns like that, which clearly totally misunderstand, and granted, it varies from denomination to denomination, but me reading that as a Catholic, it's like, all right, well, like we believe in sacraments, like physical sacraments that you go and receive at church, and then also you guys don't believe in the sacraments, or I think Calvinists believe in 2. Is that correct?
Yeah, like baptism.
Okay, yeah, and so just because God is everywhere doesn't mean He doesn't give you specific instructions to go to certain places. Yeah. So it's a bad argument on its face, but
God is
like
everywhere, so I'm going to the strip club.
Yeah, well, exactly. Like this is clear. Like there are some places He does not want you to go, and at the same time, these people, while scoffing at our beliefs and trying to own us with these really theologically unlettered perspectives, want to tell us that they are in a position to tell us how to live out our faith in the culture. That's what's so insidious about it. Like, the arguments for locking churches down would have been more effective if these people could just hide their contempt for Christianity for as long as it took to make that argument, but they're incapable. It had to be like, you're stupid and ignorant if you want to go to church. Well, who are you going to convince? Because you're like, yeah, I am stupid and ignorant for wanting to go to church. Wow, I never saw it that way. It's really sad. I don't know.
Sad.
Fantastic. Not fantastic. So I'm curious. It's obviously a different system with the hierarchy in the church. We have bishops and you have elders, correct? Or are you?
Yeah.
Okay. So were your elders saying this church has to be shut down, or is there a national conference of elders?
I was in a weird spot because I was moving, so it was like I was going
abandoning
from one church to another. But yeah, it totally depended on the church. Some people were just shut down forever. I know of one church that was meeting outside until like last week, like social distance and masks and the whole. And they were trying to.
But like at least they're trying to go.
Trying to meet,
yeah.
And it's like, okay, I see some grace in that. Like a pastor's trying not to get shut down by the county, so he's doing what he can.
I get it.
I do think at some level, I don't know when it is for each pastor, each congregation, but I think at some point you just had to go, okay, we're going to do what we can to meet because this is insane.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
just you saw what happened in Canada. That was when they chose to do that. So.
Well, and this is a huge part of my problem with what we talk about when we discuss religious freedom, is so often that term is only used in order to bully Christians. every time a Christian says, no, I'm not allowed to do that, they are somehow infringing upon someone else's religious liberty by not bending the knee and saying, your values are actually better than mine. Right. So we see this with the Catholic Church saying, well, no, according to what the Catholic Church actually teaches, Joe Biden can't have communion, so we're going to draft a letter about it. People are going, well, like they're forcing their beliefs onto the public and they're politicizing Catholicism. So, all right, well, first of all, it's not as if Christians can't be political or aren't supposed to. We see an example of democracy in Scripture, and it's when Pontius Pilate asks if he should free Barabbas or Jesus, and were the Christians there supposed to go, well, I'm not going to get political and voice my opinion that Jesus should be the one who's let go. That's voting, and my faith is just personal. Separation of church and state. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I would say that
that was a bizarre thing with the Biden communion thing. There was all these arguments going around, like what you're saying. I'm like, well, now the Catholic Church is getting political. So now we need to start taxing them.
For the first time in history.
Like, what?
It's unprecedented. The Catholic Church getting political. But no, in reality, that's not getting any more political than it is to comment on morality in general. Yeah. Like there are certain policy prescriptions that are very obviously derived from moral or philosophical principles, and you don't get to just ignore that because you want to stay out of politics. If abortion is murder, it has to be illegal, full stop. There's no way you can allow people to do it. And there's no way you can aid and abet people who are participating in that slaughter by pretending that what they're doing aligns with your principles when it doesn't. And to say that you're getting political to point that out is so absurd to me. It's so absurd. I mean, we're Catholics
they're not trying to like oust Joe Biden as president or something. They're just like, we are protecting the table within our own church.
Yes.
Like I don't understand how that's political at all.
Well, and they're pointing out that so by definition, Joe Biden is not a practicing Catholic. Did we talk about this last time I was on your show? We might have.
I don't remember.
Maybe.
So in order to be a practicing Catholic, there are a set number of requirements you have to meet. So there's the 6 precepts of the church. Then you have to give full assent to Catholic teaching, follow the 10 Commandments, and attempt to amend your life when you violate them. And the big one, give full assent to Catholic teaching, and also following the 10 Commandments, because thou shalt not kill. But he doesn't give assent to Catholic teaching on the issues such as sodomy, or he believes that 2 men can be married. He believes that children should be able to transition. Literally, children should be able to transition sex. He believes in abortion. These are all clearly out of line with Catholic teaching. Therefore, he's not a practicing Catholic. Therefore, he can't receive the Eucharist. And that's just a very straightforward understanding of Catholic teaching. I mean, that's literally what the church says. And so we are obligated to protect the Eucharist because it is a grave sacrilege.
Now, on a Sunday to Sunday basis, do priests protect the table like that if they know somebody is?
It's a really good question. That's
or
a really
is it just
good question.
general? Because if I win, I could probably walk up there and
they wouldn't know.
They wouldn't know. Right?
Yeah, they wouldn't know. So
well, they might recognize me. Hey, you're the guy from the Babylon
Bee. Absolutely. But I would. Well, but if the priest knows they're supposed to do something, and especially if the person is a public sinner. This is something Matt Fradd was talking about when I was on the show.
A public figure, I guess.
Yeah. So he mentioned, I think it was some quote from Aquinas that was taken out of context by the National Catholic Distorter, and they were insinuating that Aquinas would be in favor of communing Joe Biden because he did say something about...
Was that a joke? Was that a pun joke?
Yes, this is the National Catholic Reporter, but it's really bad. It's a horrible publication.
I thought I heard you wrong.
No. And
Catholic joke.
A Catholic joke, guys. And Joe Biden... So, Joe Biden can't have communion for the reasons I outlined. And part of it is because he is a public sinner who's obstinate. So it's one thing... If you've committed a sin and then you confess and repent and vow to amend your life, of course, like you have the Eucharist, that's the point. And that's why we believe you should go to confession before communion. And you can't go if there's a mortal sin on your soul. But if you're saying, and the reason I'm laying all this out is because people will say, well, we're all imperfect. How could you deny communion to this one sinner? It's like there's a difference between sinning and repenting and sinning and saying, this is not a sin and I'm going to keep doing it forever. Like it's a huge difference because you can't repent. You're not repenting of it. And then also, yes, the fact that Joe Biden is a public sinner. I mean, it gives scandal. If everyone in the country knows he supports abortion and they see him getting communion, to them that says, oh, we as Catholics can support abortion and still get communion, which isn't true. But I'm just.
What if he doesn't possess the cognitive capabilities of knowing he's sinning because he doesn't really know what he's doing?
I think that's a really interesting question. And with Joe Biden, like that's relevant.
Right, yeah, because you probably got like a guy that has Alzheimer's and he's always like exposing himself to women or something. You know?
Yeah, that's a really good, I think, all right, let's stop there for a moment. But
but he's like trying to be
no,
Catholic. But you're like, is he
I just think
crazy?
it's interesting that was the example you brought up with Joe Biden, but I wouldn't go that far. I don't know that he's done that, but you're just saying like you're just making
It's
an
an
example of like a crazy
of, like,
person who would do that.
Could he be a Alzheimer's guy?
There's a guy walking around sniffing women or something.
So
for example.
there is
Girls,
a principle
kids.
here where in order to really commit a mortal sin, you have to be fully conscious and capable of choosing that sin. You can't do it on accident. So if someone is severely mentally ill to the point where they genuinely cannot make their own decisions, then they wouldn't be in a state of sin. Communing that person, I'm not actually sure. I would imagine, no. I don't know if you can present yourself for communion, but so in the Catholic Church, we wait until kids are at the age of reason before we give them communion for the first time. Though that's not that's a matter of practice. I know that the Orthodox will commune infants, and that's not necessarily something that Catholics view as fundamentally bad. It's just something we choose not to do, as far as I understand, which means it could be possible to commune people who are not in their right mind or aren't capable of using reason. So I'm not sure about the question of communing somebody with Alzheimer's. I would imagine, and again, this is my own perspective here without knowing what the church teaching or what canon law has to say about this, but I would imagine that you go with the person's last known spiritual state. So like if somebody was murdering and raping and then they sustain a head injury and now they can't make moral decisions, I don't think that knocks them into a state of grace. I could be wrong. I don't know how God could act, because God can act outside the sacrament. So ultimately, I don't know. I think that person can still get their last rites, possibly. I would imagine, but I'm not as familiar with the teachings on this, so I'll just shut up.
Well, how about we dive into these second 10 questions and really get to know you?
questions for you.
Oh no! Am I on the hot seat?
You are.
Am I going to get to see them on the screen over here?
Number one,
Would you read them to you?
would you kill baby Hitler? What about teenage Hitler? What if you could only go back in time for 5 minutes when Hitler's mom was 6 months pregnant with him? Would you kill Hitler's mom?
All right, so that's 10 questions right there.
Yeah.
You got multiple?
That's that part.
So, no. You can't kill somebody before they've committed the crime. You can't retroactively punish crime. So, no, the answer is no. I don't think you can kill
Teenage
somebody.
Hitler had probably done some crimes.
Maybe. Had he committed any crimes that the civil authorities would administer the death penalty for? If that was the case, then turn him into the civil authorities and they could administer the death penalty to him for me.
So you would go back in time,
I'd rat out Hitler.
find some crimes that he had done,
Investigate
get him arrested.
teenage Hitler.
I don't, I wouldn't. I don't believe that you can kill somebody before they've committed the crime.
Okay, trolley is going towards Hitler. You can pull the lever. He's tied to the track. You can pull the lever and...
This is young. Do other people get hit?
Let's say it's baby.
Again, so
Baby
before...
Hitler.
An unlikable
Before-
age, 13.
Before Hitler has committed any crime, you just have to treat him the way you would any other person.
Okay,
So I would just have to
trolley
answer
is
for him.
going towards
Yeah, you
Hitler.
save him.
And you
So you would
save him.
save him.
Now, Media Matters is going to sound clip that.
Yeah.
But my point is...
They don't
Hashtag
subscribe,
save
probably.
Yeah, before somebody commits a crime, before somebody does the wrongdoing, you can't punish them. That maybe there's something I do wrong in the future. Not that, but maybe I'll do something wrong at some point. Like that's not. But seriously,
Maybe
like,
but
I
if
could-
you're going
like,
back
I
in
think
time,
that's impossible.
in
But
your
but
world,
I couldn't punish
it is
myself for things I've
after
already done. Yeah, I mean, you can't. I'm sure to do something wrong. I've done wrong things in the past. I'm sure to do wrong things in the future. I would like to not be punished for them until after I do them. And it's weird because, do you remember when Ben Shapiro answered this question?
No, I don't.
And then he lost a sponsor.
No, really?
It's like, this is a weird...
'Cause he would
and
save
my
Hitler,
friend
or what?
pointed this out.
he
Yeah,
wouldn't kill
something
Hitler?
like that. He wouldn't kill baby Hitler. And my friend pointed out that like that is a really weird philosophical question for a corporate stance to exist on. Be like, at our toothpaste company, we think you should kill baby Hitler. And we're like, so yeah, no, I don't think so. I don't think you kill a person.
so no to
before.
all
This is actually an argument. It's a bad one, and it's not one serious pro-choicers will use, but it's one I've heard pro-choicers use. Oh, well, Hitler's mom was actually persuaded to have an abortion, and she didn't do it. So imagine how much better the world would be had she had the abortion. Well, Hitler was completely innocent.
How many
at that
Hitlers
point.
have been killed instead of how many geniuses have
Well, it's
Yeah,
a bad
exactly.
argument on both directions.
It's a bad argument in both directions because a human being's value is not contingent on what they achieve or fail to achieve. They're made in the image and likeness of God and have infinite dignity.
Listen to this man.
If you could create your own holiday, what would it be?
Like how this veers from like...
Ethan, man. I know. It starts... It's like if your parents weren't home and you could stay up as late as you wanted, what snacks would you eat? And the next question is like, is man fundamentally depraved?
You're catching on to our pattern.
You murder a baby.
If you could create your own holiday, what would it be? Juneteenth.
It's already done.
Oh man, all the good ones are taken. I don't know that I can create a holiday. I was speaking with a very interesting, intelligent fella, and I'm blanking on his name, but he was talking about how creating holidays is a huge part of idolatry and paganism. I found that fascinating. If you want to get people on board with a new narrative, you create festival days for them. And it makes sense why in the Christian calendar we have holidays, because Christ is actually God. And so it makes sense for us to give honor and reverence to him. But to make all these strange holidays for political purposes, to me, is kind of creepy. I don't know that I'm settled one way or another on it, just based on the conversation I had with this fellow, but I thought it was interesting, and I'd never considered that in the past. So honestly, I don't think I would make a holiday. And if I did, it would have to be something tangentially related to my Catholic faith. So maybe something about like Unborn Children Remembrance Day, or if it wasn't a directly liturgical holiday.
Yeah, there's something where people miss the point when these like companies try to create a holiday. Like, you can't do that. Like holidays come about. Like,
Exactly.
You can't just be like, today is whatever.
We're
Pirate
making
Day.
second Christmas, and it's going to be in July, and people will buy a product. Christmas in July never took off. But yeah, you have these weird Hallmark holidays, or you have holidays that already existed that are co-opted by commercialism, which is also sad. Yeah. Which is a very edgy opinion, by the way. Did you guys know I'm against commercialism?
Oh, wow. Look at this guy. I just can't wait to buy a cheap mattress next Juneteenth. If you could only eat one food for the rest of your life.
I actually don't get the mattress joke. Is that bad? Is it mattress sale?
They always have big mattress sales
on every holiday.
on
Is
I'm
that,
waiting
oh,
for-
that's so true. That is a weird thing. That's a weird pagan thing.
Well, I appreciate you laughing.
Even though I was like, I well, for a second it sounded like something. I was like, wait a minute, no, I didn't get that. My natural instinct is just laugh things. I'm very sanguine. We talked about the temperaments earlier, but I admitted it. I admitted it.
Pharmaglatic. What was that?
Phlegmatic.
You're a flag magnet.
Phlegmatic.
Phlegmatic.
If you can only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
The Eucharist. If that was the only meal.
All right.
What is one song, movie, band, etc. that you are ashamed to actually like?
Wow, that's a great question.
Thank you.
That is a really good question. What is a song? Are you laughing because that sounded sarcastic? Because I'm sincere. Because no, but
Ethan almost thanks. He's like, thank you.
Yeah, as if I thought of it.
but it speaks to me.
I'm a puppet. Puppeting a question to you.
It speaks to me because there are definitely songs, movies, and bands that I do like that I am ashamed of. I'm trying to think of them. None are coming to me off the top of my head.
Like Drowning Pool or something?
So there are some really, really bad post-1970s hymns that I don't think are proper for the Mass, but which I do personally find catchy. That would probably fall under the songs I'm ashamed of, but I can't think of a specific one. In terms of a band,
How embarrassing.
maybe I'm not going to answer the rest of these now. I don't feel
You
safe
don't have to
anymore.
say all of them. This is like...
Maybe
pick
no.
one.
I'm
just
here to
pick one.
humiliate myself. He who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. So let me tell you about all the cringy bands I like. I unironically have enjoyed a lot of that edgy teen rock from the 2000s. It grew on
Like
me.
My Chemical Romance or something?
Yes, like My Chemical Romance. I don't listen to that stuff anymore, but listen here. I know my brother used to blast System of a Down from his bedroom.
Okay,
I
yeah.
remember listening to it as a kid and going, "You're such a stereotype." But like, it eventually grew on me. So System of a Down, like Linkin Park, that stuff. I don't listen to it anymore. But there's part of me.
So weird to think that you were like a little kid.
Yeah, I was a little boy. Yeah, I must have been like 10 when my brother was blasting that stuff from his room. And then I won't admit the stuff that's really embarrassing.
All right.
Until the after. You have to subscribe to me on Patreon.
Okay.
Hold on. There was actually a movie I was thinking of the other day that I enjoy, but I know isn't good. Man.
Britney Spears' Crossroads?
Yes, that is the greatest. It was cheated. It was cheated out of the Oscar. No, I'm not even familiar with it. What do you guys have examples? I'm curious what your movies are.
Matt, have we answered these?
Have we answered? I think we changed it. So yeah.
Oh yeah, we did answer the second 10 questions, but this question wasn't on there. I mean, I like cheesy pop punk bands from the 90s, but I'm not ashamed of it.
Good for you.
I have like no shame.
Why
That's the
wouldn't
thing.
Why would I care?
That's true. Ethan really has no shame.
I like really cheesy old country songs and like Bonnie Tyler. You know, like I Need a Hero.
Okay, that's legit. I can get
She's
behind
great.
that.
Like
I can understand
I
that.
rock out to her.
80s jams, dude. There are some that are just they're good. They're entertaining. Yeah.
I like Carly Rae Jepsen.
Well, everyone likes Carly Rae Jepsen.
Her sophomore
so it's
album
not
was
even-
fantastic.
Well, come on. If we're just stating basic opinions that everyone agrees with, then sure. It's true. Yes, of course.
Movies. The thing about movies is like it's cool to like a bad movie, right? Like, there's like a hipster element.
That's interesting.
So to me, it would be a mass market movie. Well,
yeah,
like it's a little weird
course.
that I like the Marvel films. You know, like that's a little embarrassing to be like, I kind of like the Marvel films, even though they're easy to rag on. You know.
Yeah, well,
maybe something like that.
I feel like there was. I remember being younger and just like the girls that I knew. Whenever they got to pick the movie that we were like watching as a group, and they picked some chick flick, it was usually unbearable. But then there were some that, in spite of yourself, you actually found really
Chick flicks
funny.
are probably a good.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah.
So
Notebook?
I see. I had like a thing
I've never
for-
seen. I've never seen The Notebook, but I did think that Mean Girls was very funny. I can't remember what's in it, so I don't know if I can recommend it from a moral standpoint. I think some of it was probably pretty vulgar, but that. And then I remember as a kid, I remember really loving just how the Titanic like crumbled and fell apart in the movie. I thought that was super, super cool. So I really enjoyed
know what
that
parts you
like
like
part
in
of Titanic, which is like the ship exploding and tearing and the funnels are falling and crushing people and they're locking all those Irish people in the basement. I'm like, yes. No, I'm kidding with the last part, obviously. But just
At what point,
the
like-
violence being done in
Yeah.
that film to as a kid, and granted, I didn't watch any of like the dirty parts because my dad would like record over VHS tapes. So it was a bad moment, but
What would
that was our
happen?
pure flicks.
What would happen? Would it like?
To be honest, I don't think I ever like watched the whole thing. I really
do the
just think
pause
I
or
watched the parts where the ship was exploding.
So
and
we
falling
had like
apart.
Beethoven. I
YouTube
remember
it.
we had Beethoven second on VHS. It was the sequel to Beethoven, the movie with the dogs.
Oh my gosh, I never saw that.
And there was like a scene where they were partying and drinking. The teens are being cool.
I
And
think you told us the story.
I don't think anything happened, but my parents recorded over it with Gilligan's Island.
There
So
was
we'd watch the movie and all of a sudden we'd be like, hey,
No
Skipper,
drinking.
and they'd be walking around and then it would go back.
my dad recorded over the
I did tell the
two
story.
like I think there's like 3 family unfriendly moments in Forrest Gump that my dad recorded over on the VHS tape we had of it. And so it would just like cut to something else, and then it wasn't until I was older I was like, "That's what happened." Man?
Why is Gilligan in this? I don't know.
exactly.
I think about like
It's
the
good.
Titanic is like a real tragedy that happened to real people. Like it shows like how far away out you have to be from a tragedy to
Yeah.
make that graphic of a scene about it happening. Because you imagine
Oh my
that
gosh.
graphic of a 9/11 film. Where
Exactly,
you're just
and
watching
it's
people
like-
falling.
and like
They did do
9/11.
9/11 movies.
But like 9/11,
they did, but did they make it like
but
where
they
like, it
didn't-
shows the people jumping off and like
They made movies about 9/11, but they didn't use the collapse of the Twin Towers as a gimmick for a love story.
right?
You know?
Yeah, especially
Actually,
that.
they did.
No, they did with
They
Robert
did.
Pattinson.
There was
Remember
a
that one?
film that came out in like 2005, and they didn't tell the audience, and so the plot twist
That's
is
the
at the
Robert
very
Pattinson one.
end. He's at the top of the Twin Towers. It's like
What?
Yes,
No,
they didn't
okay,
tell
so it's-
anybody because they wanted like an edgy plot twist and all these people. It was like right after 9/11 where people had lost family members and the nation was traumatized. And they're like,
was
it
like-
would be a good twist ending. You just like throw 9/11 in there while people are still traumatized by it. And they did.
It was like a romantic movie or like there was like all this drama going on. And then like at the end of the movie, he's like writing on the board or something. He's like, okay, here's the date, September 11th. And it like zooms out and he's in the Twin Towers and a plane kills
What
him.
Yeah, it's
movie
like
was
it's
this?
so bad. Like, well, who thought?
Robert Pattinson was in it. It was called
it's like
In
think-
Time,
Wow.
In Time or something in Time.
I've never
something
sat
like
through the film, but I just saw that clip of him at the very end where I think he's on the phone with his
Remember
girlfriend or
Me, that
something.
was it.
So while everyone else was like editing the Twin Towers out of their movies and stuff at that time, they
That's
edited it
right.
back in.
Well, that after
But
Spider-Man.
they didn't advertise it at all that it was about. the Twin
Yeah.
Towers.
There was like a thing with Spider-Man or something, right? Like
Yes, they had to cut
He had
the
his
towers
web
out
between
of
the
them.
Twin Towers or something.
Yeah, there was a
it was the
promotional image of a
Twilight guy.
helicopter caught in a web.
He's like looking out
between
he's like
towers.
looking out the go up a little bit or that shot right there. He's looking out the window, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, here comes a plane. And he's dead.
I don't think.
It was
I don't
something
think
like
it shows. I don't think it shows that. I just think it zooms out of the tower. And
Yeah,
it's
it zooms
on
out
it,
something like
which is such a disrespectful thing to do, especially right after 9/11. It's weird, but it's
what's weird is
also weird how over time we become desensitized to it. So again,
Yeah.
Titanic, because no one lived through it. Maybe that's not weird. Maybe that just make perfect sense because people who lived through it and lost people on the Titanic aren't watching the movie Titanic.
Yeah, no.
So it does make sense.
But there was like
Or people that were traumatized by just the news. Like
They were
I think there's
making-
people that are traumatized just by the news of 9/11.
they were making a bunch of war movies about World War II, like
Yes.
during World War II,
Yeah.
or like right after World
That's
War
true.
II. You can go watch those war movies.
but also the way those war movies were not gritty.
Yeah, they weren't trying.
They were very rah-rah American war propaganda. It was not like Saving Private Ryan
Right.
or something.
Yeah, you weren't making
really
Saving
just
Private
seeing
Ryan.
blood and gore and
All right, I'm about to melt to death in this
sorry.
suit. So number 5, if you had to denounce either Ethan or
Oh,
Kyle,
this is
who
so
would it be?
easy. I would 100% denounce Kyle, and it's not even.
Well,
it's
I
not
agree
even a
with that,
question.
so.
Yeah,
Sweet.
just denounce Kyle immediately.
Well, you've been hanging out with him for a day.
Exactly. I've been hanging out
Give
with
me a
Ian for like a
chance.
day and a half. So
We got a lot
I
of
can't-
synergy.
We were coming up with a lot of funny jokes. I don't know if
Yeah.
I'd come up with the same funny jokes if I was with you. So like, if I had to denounce either of you, it would be.
I feel like we look more similar, and maybe
We do.
that
Yeah.
would.
It's
help
like
you,
there
but-
can't be two.
but that's-
Like
yeah.
I can't just have
It's
like
a
a
Highlander
less
thing.
handsome version
Yeah,
of me.
I kind of have to
hanging
pick
around.
one or
Like,
the other.
Yeah.
What conspiracy theory do you secretly actually believe for
Well,
real?
it wouldn't be a
You're
secret.
no longer secret anymore.
It's not a secret anymore. So
what-
here's the thing:
Okay, but what's one you
Most
believe?
outlandish conspiracy theory you believe. How about that?
Avril Lavigne is not really Avril Lavigne. No, I'm kidding. Have you guys heard this? No, it's an actual thing.
Yeah.
So
That one?
All right. As a kid, and I never believed in any conspiracy theories with one exception, and I'll get into it, but I don't really think it's a
Adrenochrome.
conspiracy theory. No. I didn't believe in any conspiracy theories when I was a young warthog. And then 2015, 2016
Lion
came
King
around.
Oh yeah, Lion
And
King.
even in 2016, right after the election, if somebody had told me the deep state would attempt to unseat a democratically elected president, I would be like, that's crazy, you silly goose. I trust the intelligence agencies. Maybe I wouldn't go that far. But I think the past 4 or 5 years has made me a lot less unfriendly towards conspiracy theories in general because many of them have been validated. There are some that are just ridiculous, right? Like you have flat earthers, like that's never going to not sound ridiculous. But at the same time, I can understand the psychology of saying I will never trust anything any expert tells me because we've just been lied to by these people for so long.
Yeah.
So I don't know that there are any conspiracy theories because the things that I believe in that you would call conspiracy theories have pretty much all been validated at this point. So Jeffrey Epstein, right? And this is the one I sort of subscribed to when I was much younger. I remember being a kid and there was always this weird understanding in my mind that Hollywood, I mean, I think everyone knew and knows that Hollywood is run by perverts, but the fact that they were sexually abusing and trafficking children was something that might have been considered more of a conspiracy theory, but to me, that always just seemed obvious for a few reasons. I know that sounds very arrogant, but part of it was being raised Catholic when I was about 8 years old. That's when the scandals broke with the child sex abuse. And I just remember thinking, if this is something that's happening in the Catholic Church on a large scale, and when I looked into the data too, I found that the Catholic Church didn't even have the highest instance of that kind of thing occurring. Public schools
are worse, yeah.
extremely well. And also, people would sort of scapegoat celibacy, but religious denominations where the priests can marry have an equally high rate of child sex abuse or higher, which is fascinating too, considering in a lot of those denominations, women can be ordained and men are just generally more guilty of sex crimes in general. And even still, their rates are similar or higher to those of Catholic priests. But what boggled my mind was that this institution, which I love, like as a Catholic and care for, had these horrible, nefarious elements within it, and children were being abused. And then this Epstein stuff comes out, Michael Jackson sexually abusing children far before that comes out, and there are some fall guys along the way. But it just becomes obvious when these people have so many connections with everybody else that there is sex trafficking going on in Hollywood. And Corey Feldman has spoken out about this. And when he has, he's been, guess what, dismissed by Hollywood. What a shock. Mm-hmm. They'll say things like, well, you're maligning an entire industry. Well, maybe that industry maligned itself by rubbing shoulders with sex traffickers for so long. So that's not a secret. That's not a secret belief. I'll come out and say that, but I also don't know that I would call that a conspiracy theory. I think everyone just kind of accepts that it is an open secret, which is the name of a documentary about this problem as well. It's a documentary about a very specific talent agency where the manager was abusing children. And so it doesn't unpack the problem of all of Hollywood. It doesn't get into it. It talks about a specific instance, but I would highly recommend it. And you will see that. Like, there are people who were convicted of sexually abusing children who, by court order, were not allowed to work with kids or be near kids, who were like hired by the Disney Channel to consult over the phone with them and given jobs back after they served out their sentence. So this stuff, it's so insidious and nefarious. And I think the people who don't think Hollywood is up to that, in my mind, are the conspiracy theorists. I don't know. What do you guys think of that, I assume?
Number 7, what is your favorite?
That's what I thought. Do you guys really not think that Hollywood is like full of sex traffickers and sex abusers?
Totally. I mean,
100%. I think the conspiracy theory is that it's not.
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
To me,
So I almost feel like I've sullied that belief by referring to it as a conspiracy theory because it's just obvious. I mean, Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself. He didn't.
yeah. Agreed.
So I don't know, what conspiracy theory do I secretly believe in? Because that's not a secret belief, and it's not really that much of a conspiracy theory. I'd have to think about that some more. The Middle Ages didn't happen. That's one I had. I don't believe that if there's someone explaining that, like, actually, the reason they call it the Dark Ages is we don't have anything written, but actually that time period just didn't happen, and they just like said it happened.
ever seen the movie The Staircase?
No.
Oh, okay.
So the Dark Age, how long was the Dark Age? Like 800 years?
I'm not sure exactly.
So they think that we're actually 800 years closer
Yes.
to Christ?
Yeah. And they
Like,
like
just
made
did-
this
they
up.
just
They were like,
changed the number?
there was a stretch of centuries that were just invented.
It's interesting.
I mean, who is the guy we left in charge of keeping track of what day it is from the first
It's probably
7-day
the
week?
Catholics.
Yeah, probably. Well, no, I mean, originally it would have started with the Jews with their calendar.
Right.
The Jews had, I mean, we take a 7-day calendar for granted, but that's not always how days were structured in other civilizations, like the ancient Assyrians or Babylonians. Ancient Romans didn't have 7-day calendars. I know the Romans didn't actually. I'm not as sure about the Babylonians and Assyrians, but I know that the Jewish calendar was relatively unique. And so that's what we use today.
He pointed at you when he said Babylonians. And
Babylonians,
You're a Babylonian?
Secret knowledge
He's a
about
Roman, yeah.
Well, we're
I
all
know, you know,
Babylonians.
but
Bees.
yeah, we don't know. I'm curious, was there like one day that they just got wrong? Have we been tracking the days of the
It's
week
possible.
perfectly since the beginning of time? Because you think about how things fell apart during, after the fall of Rome in the medieval period, and different factions were in different tribes, and then they grew into the countries that they are today. And did they all meet up and think it was the same day of the week when they started communicating? Or someone like, it's Tuesday. No, it's Thursday.
I'm gonna have to Google it. Yeah, I wonder if they can
I'm really
recalculate
curious
it based
about
on like solar events or
Yeah.
what's that called? Stars,
Those astronomy.
astronomy. That
Yes. Yes.
thing. I wonder if they can go back and see like eclipse happened this day, so therefore blah blah blah. blah.
Yeah. What if they found out that we were actually off with the months and everyone who's into astrology is just destroyed?
It's
So
completely
like, wait a
wrong.
minute, I'm not an Aries.
Well, they did that like a couple years ago. They said we have gotten the astrological signs wrong, or they like changed 2 signs or something.
I hope someone got fired
and
for
it's
that.
just like,
Because
These are the longest answers to these
Number
questions.
7.
we've
I'm
ever
sorry,
had.
I want to give you guys a good show.
Yeah,
I want to have
you-
a good conversation.
Number 7. What's your favorite color? What is something you wish had never been invented? We need to make these better.
Jeffrey Epstein.
Invented,
I guess
or
yeah.
just something you wish people never created, or something that
I
never
would say
happened.
this is a technological invention or
I wish sin had never been invented. But
yeah,
obviously-
right. I mean,
yeah. But a technological invention. Ooh, man.
from the dawn of time till now.
This is gonna be ironic. That's so tough because I'm just gonna be looking in my little world and I might say something like social media, but
Well, it's fine.
there have certainly been worse things historically
Sure.
that I'm just not noticing that have caused far more misery than social media. Nuclear weapons would be a good one. Probably nuclear weapons. Biological warfare is it's hard. I mean, all weapons of mass destruction. Can I just say WMDs and have the whole category
Any big bomb.
of germ warfare? Because germ warfare is also, fabricated diseases are also a weapon of mass destruction. You can literally kill billions of people with the right
all of that.
disease. Yeah. If just weapons of mass destruction, just violence. If we just had infinite
If we
violence.
only had peace.
Yeah, but nuclear bombs
If we could
to
all get
me,
along.
I would absolutely uninvent nuclear bombs.
Good going here. You can change the ending of any book or movie and make it better. What do you change?
So in The Fox and the Hound, I would have the dog actually die.
Okay.
He's the older dog. I don't remember, but the ending is just less poignant because he survives being hit by a train, which he wouldn't. He's hit by a train off
Does
of
the fox die?
a
Can't remember.
bridge. No, it's a beautiful film. I haven't watched it in a long time, but that's one film I remember being annoyed by when I rewatched it as I was older because they could have They could have just stuck the emotional landing at the end, but they decided to
I feel like
have
a lot of
this
movies
dog
do that
live.
where they decide you can tell like it was written so the guy dies and then they
Yeah.
chicken out and don't do it.
Same with Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah,
Why does Batman live at the end of that film?
should die.
Spoiler alert! Can you put a spoiler
crap.
alert up before I say that? Yeah, I wouldn't. What movie would I change to make it better? Yeah, I think that's.
You said Fox the Hound
I would
already.
say Fox and the Hound. Yeah.
You're going to AOC's. You're going to AOC's gulags. You get to only take one book and one movie with you, and you can't pick the Bible.
The director's edition of Fox and the Hound, the one I just modified.
And then the Fox and the Hound script.
And bears want to kill you in case there are bears
Perfect.
in the gulag. If I was going to AOC, so I can't take the Bible.
already there.
Any religious text? What about like the catechism? Can I take the catechism?
You could say catechism.
Okay, so I'd
Are
say
you answering
catechism.
multiple times?
That would be a
now?
very Seamus-y answer.
Yeah, so the catechism, well, it's one book and one movie. So I gave you the movie and then there's the book. Movie would actually probably be Forrest Gump. I love that film. But the VHS version where my dad taped
The
over
edited
the gross
version?
parts, yeah.
Then you get bonus.
Or Shawshank to give me ideas on how to escape. Like AOC would be just like the warden there. And she's like, she gives me her communist manifesto that I hide my rock hammer in. Spoiler alert.
You have a Gadsden flag hanging on the wall, and you keep away from him.
You accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, or recommit yourself to Jesus?
I recommit myself to Jesus every day. It's a struggle. Yeah, I have to.
We got him.
Wait, what does it
Alright,
mean?
done,
No.
Ladies and gentlemen.
No. This had nothing to do with you. I'm sorry to tell you. What do you mean by recommit yourself to Jesus? I'm curious.
This
about
is
that.
a thing in Protestant churches.
Okay, what is it?
They'll do, because they'll do like the altar call, and they're like, if you want to accept Jesus for the first time, come to the front. Or if you're kind of like, you already did this, but
You fell away, but
you're not sure
recommitted.
it's stuck.
You like laughs? Okay.
back.
Yeah, for me, it's just a constant journey and just walking with Christ. And sometimes you move off the path a little bit, and then you have to readjust. And
The life of the
readjust.
believer is one of repentance.
Exactly. So recommitting yourself to Jesus means I have to.
Was that
repent
Martin
all the
Luther
time.
that said that, dude?
Oh wow!
Did
What
I
a
just get him
horrible
to
quote.
agree?
What a gross quote.
Whoa.
Look, in every heresy, there's a kernel of truth. But the reason,
broken clock, man.
part of the reason I'm not Lutheran is I could never be in a religion started by a Catholic priest.
All right, everyone, thanks for joining us. We were about to turn the air conditioning on.
And I
because we are
stole that
dying.
joke, by the way. That's not.
And
it's not
I'm
a
sure you
Seamus
did. It
original.
sounded stolen.
Yeah.
And I have to go pee, so adios.
Toodaloo.
Thanks for joining us. Thank you, Seamus.
I love you.
He loves you.